Hello and welcome back to my blog. We're on to part 3, the last part of chapter 4, the third part of chapter 4 of the practice of autosuggestion by the method of Emile, Coue. Chapter 4, Thought as a Force. If you live in a town, you have probably seen people who, in carelessly crossing the street, find themselves in danger of being run down by a vehicle. In this position, they sometimes stand for an appreciable time rooted, as we say, to the spot. This is because the danger seems so close that they imagine themselves powerless to elude it. As soon as this idea gives place to that of escape, they get out of the way as fast as they can. If their first idea persisted, however, the actual powerlessness resulting from it would likewise persist, and unless the vehicle stopped or turned aside, they would infallibly be run over. One occasionally meets people suffering from a nervous complaint known as St. Vitus dance. They have a disconcerting habit of contorting their faces, screwing round their necks, or twitching their shoulders. It is a well-known fact that those who come into close contact with them, living in the same house or working in the same office, are liable to contract the same habit, often performing the action without themselves being aware of it. This is due to the operation of the same law. The idea of the habit being repeatedly presented to their minds realizes itself, and they begin to perform a similar movement in their own persons. Examples of this law present themselves at every turn. Have you ever asked yourself why some people faint at the sight of blood, or why most of us turn giddy when we look down from a great height? If we turn to the sufferers from neurosis, we find some who have lost their powers of speech or of vision. Some, like the blacksmith we saw in Coue's clinic, who have lost the use of their limbs. Others suffering from a functional disturbance of one of the vital organs. The cause in each case is nothing more tangible than an idea which has become realized in the unconscious mind. These instances show clearly enough that the thoughts we think do actually become realities in the unconscious. But is this a universal law operating in every life, or merely something contingent and occasional? Sometimes irrelevant cheerfulness seems only to make despondency more deep. Certain types of individual are only irritated by the performance of a stage comedy. Physicians listen to the circumstantial accounts of their patients' ailments without being in the least upset. These facts seem at first sight at variance with the rule, but they are only apparent exceptions which serve to test and verify it. The physical or mental effect invariably corresponds with the idea present in the mind, but this need not be identical with the thought communicated from without. Sometimes a judgment interposes itself, or it may be that the idea calls up an associated idea which possesses greater vitality and therefore dislodges it. A gloomy person who meets a cheerful acquaintance may mentally contrast himself with the latter, setting his own troubles beside the other's good fortune, his own grounds for sadness beside the other's grounds for satisfaction. Thus the idea of his own unhappiness is strengthened, and sinking into the unconscious makes still deeper the despondency he experienced before. In the same way, the doctor, listening to the symptoms of a patient, does not allow these distressful ideas to dwell in his conscious mind. His thought passes on immediately to the remedy, to the idea of the help he must give. Not only does he manifest this helpfulness in reasoned action, but also by unconscious realization in his very bearing and manner. Or his mind may be concentrated on the scientific bearings of the case, so that he will involuntarily treat the patient as a specimen on which to pursue his researches. The steeplejack experiences no giddiness or fear in scaling a church spire, because the thought of danger is immediately replaced by the knowledge of his own clear head and sure foot. This brings us to a point which is of great practical importance in the performance of curative autosuggestion. No idea presented to the mind can realize itself unless the mind accepts it. Most of the errors made hitherto in this field have been due to the neglect of this fundamental fact. If a patient is suffering from severe toothache, it is not of the slightest use to say to him, "You have no pain." The statement is so grossly opposed to the fact that acceptation is impossible. The patient will reject the suggestion, affirm the fact of his suffering, and so, by allowing his conscious mind to dwell on it, probably make it more intense. We are now in a position to formulate the basic law of autosuggestion as follows. Every idea which enters the conscious mind, if it is accepted by the unconscious, is transformed by it into a reality and forms henceforth a permanent element in our life. This is the process called spontaneous autosuggestion. It is a law by which the mind of man has always worked and by which all our minds are working daily. The reader will see from the examples cited and from others which he will constantly meet that the thoughts we think determine not only our mental states, our sentiments and emotions, but the delicate actions and adjustments of our physical bodies. Trembling, palpitation, stammering, blushing, not to speak of the pathological states which occur in neurosis, are due to modifications and changes in the blood flow, in muscular action, and in the working of the vital organs. These changes are not voluntary and conscious ones. They are determined by the unconscious and come to us often with a shock of surprise. It must be evident that if we fill our conscious minds with ideas of health, joy, goodness, efficiency, and can ensure their acceptation by the unconscious, these ideas too will become realities, capable of lifting us on to a new plane of being. The difficulty which has hitherto so frequently brought these hopes to naught is that of ensuring acceptation. This will be treated in the next chapter. To sum up, the whole process of autosuggestion consists of two steps. 1, the acceptation of an idea. 2, its transformation into reality. Both these operations are performed by the unconscious. Whether the idea is originated in the mind of the subject or is presented from without by the agency of another person is a matter of indifference. In both cases, it undergoes the same process. It is submitted to the unconscious, accepted or rejected, and so either realized or ignored. Thus, the distinction between autosuggestion and heterosuggestion is seen to be both arbitrary and superficial. In essentials, all suggestion is autosuggestion. The only distinction we need make is between spontaneous autosuggestion, which takes place independently of our will and choice, and induced autosuggestion, in which we consciously select the ideas to realize and purposely convey them to the unconscious. That's the end of Part 3 of Chapter 4. Make it a great day, and bye for now.